For the Rural Radio Network, I'm Jayson Jorgensen. Lexington great and former Husker Monte Kiffin passed away this summer. His funeral was held last Saturday in Florida. This week I talked to one of his nephews, Jim Murphy, who's a Lexington native who also played for the Huskers, and he looks back on what it was like to be one of the nephews of Kiffin.
Really, my first memories are watching him play football at Nebraska, but that led to him being our, I don't say hero, but just, someone we looked up to when we were young. And he was so full of enthusiasm about everything that it always was kind of infectious. So it was, and everyone in Lexington growing up there where we grew up knew about Monty and their famous team of the 1957 team that never got scored on until the last game of the year. So everyone in Lexington knew of him and knew it was certainly a help for us that people knew us around town because we were Monty's nephews, and it wasn't until even the funeral this last Saturday that I realized all the other things that he had kind of done. So for us, he was just someone to look up to and just a great human being and very enthusiastic towards life.
Jim, one thing that strikes me is he never forgot where he came from. He was still a Lexington guy despite everything that he accomplished and the places and the people he ran across.
That's true, and he kept in contact with all of, especially his football classmates. In fact, when Mick Tinglehoff, one of his classmates, which it's crazy that two people from the same high school football team born just a few months apart in 1940 in Lexington, Nebraska, ended up in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but they did. And but a whole crew of their high school football team, Mick invited them, and Monty was there with some Dick Stuckey and others that went to the Hall of Fame induction for Mick Tinglehoff. I think it was 2015. So he loved Lexington. He loved Nebraska. He always wanted to know what the scores of the Lexington high school team and the Nebraska football team were before he went out in the NFL on Sundays.
What was it like playing at Nebraska after he had been there? I'm sure that had to be a thrill for you.
It was. My dad was a co-captain there at Nebraska, and then married Monty's sister. And when Monty played there, we had already been going to the games, but it was kind of crazy. An interesting thing, maybe an aside, in the old days, when I'm talking in the 60s, the entire Nebraska football staff would come out to Johnson Lake and spend a whole week. So Coach Osborne, Coach Devaney, Monte Kiffin, Warren Powers, they would all come out, and the people in Bass Bay would let their cabin be used by the coaching staff for a whole week. So I knew Coach Osborne and the Fisher boys and the Cletus Fisher's sons before I even went to the university. But all that familiarity with everyone involved in the program certainly helped me get through the Nebraska program easier.
Wow, that's amazing to think about. And something like that probably would never happen today.
Certainly not. Certainly just the ease of how people did things in the old days and no social media and all that stuff. So it was more like a family. The whole coaching staff, they were all friends and they did things together, and the families, they kind of, a lot of them lived in the same section of Lincoln. It was actually a magical time, and Lexington was just starting to do really well in athletics. I'm talking the Ted Harvey days and the 72 and 3 championships in football, high school championships. So it was a magical time to be involved in athletics in Lexington, Nebraska in the early 70s.
Today we're visiting with Jim Murphy, the nephew of former Lexington great and Husker Monte Kiffin. Jim, from what I've kind of gathered on social media is that Monty really did a great job of going out of his way and making sure the family members were there when he was coaching in a lot of those big games.
Especially my sister Helen that lives in Omaha. she probably went to the most games than my brother Dan. We all attended and bought T-shirts and hats from the teams that he was associated with, and everyone remembers his last, I think it's 13 or 14 years with Tampa Bay, but they forget that he was with, I think, 14 teams before that of different varying size, or before and after that. It's a career that's not for the timid, coaching, I mean, because no fault of your own, you could be let go as a coaching staff. In fact, his first coaching job that he went to the pros was with a guy named Bart Starr, and he went to Green Bay, and I remember him telling us, there's no way they'll fire Bart Starr, but they did.
Yeah.
He was looking for a job again. But once he got to Tampa Bay and established himself in the Super Bowl and everything, man, we loved it, and he loved having us around him, and we all got to go to the Super Bowl, and it was great.
The funeral was this past weekend. I'm sure there had to be some notable dignitaries there.
Yes, it was a real nice service. It was Saturday. They had 5 speakers, I think, or maybe 6, and they all did a real nice job. You know, Rondé Barber, John Lynch, Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp all talked, and then Gus Bradley, who's I think he's defensive coordinator, Indianapolis, now former Jacksonville coach, but coached for Monty too. They all spoke and all did. They're really a good group, and they all knew how Monty helped each one of them kind of get to the next level. And they had quite a defense. They end up with, I think, 4 Hall of Famers off that one defense. So I think they know that, you know, Monty had a big part of it because he put all those pieces together to make one of the best defenses ever.
And how about in later years? I'm sure it meant a lot to Monty to be able to follow Lane around and help him in all of his stops, and it really helped to get his coaching career going.
He did. It helped Lane. Some of the people that Monty knew in the business, certainly it helped. I mean, Pete Carroll was actually one of the first guys Monty hired when he went to North Carolina State as the head coach way back, and they always stayed friends. And Pete was at the funeral on Saturday, and but that's, you know, Lane's first, you know, somewhat significant job was he and Steve Sarkisian, who's the head coach of Texas now. They were the co-offensive coordinators of the USC teams that won 1 or 2 national championships in their day. But it helped that Monty had a few connections, and then Lane was able to, just through his knowledge of football, but being around it all the time, he was able to pick up the offensive things that, and Kiff was on the defensive side, so they were opposite in that way. But Lane certainly developed into a good offensive coordinator and coach.
Well, what a life he led, and so many connections from a kid from Lexington.
Yes, he was, and he was just a wonderful human being. And they were saying at the funeral, and I would agree, that he talked to everyone from the equipment manager to the video man to anyone that worked there. That you know, he was nice to them and was always enthusiastic to everybody, no matter who you were.
That was Jim Murphy, one of Monte Kiffin's nephews. Now, Monty will be laid to rest in a private ceremony for the family on August 4th in Lexington. A reception that is open to the public will be held from noon until 2 at Kirk's in Lexington. For the Rural Radio Network, I'm Jayson Jorgensen.